Howie may have done a lot better than what we thought, at least what I thought. I'll say I'll put it with me, at least better than I thought. Like I said, I thought, Dickerson was a luxury pick. I really did. But he's shown now that, from what I've seen on film in college, that he needs to be there, and that was a good pick.
Couple days away, the start of the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles football season, exhibition game numero uno, coached by Nick Sirianni, game numero uno. First ever chance to see the coach on the sidelines. We've seen him in practice so far, but actually being on the side, calling plays, that's something we haven't focused on much. We're hoping to get Barrett Brooks up in just a couple of seconds here. Nick Sirianni, the play caller. He learned at the right hand of Frank Reich in Indianapolis. People are going back and reviewing what the Colts did and how the Colts moved the football and the kind of play calling the Colts had. This is the first time that Sirianni will ever actually call plays in the National Football League. But if you believe he learned well from Frank Reich, anything specific you're looking for, anything you want to see, need to see, or believe you're going to see here in exhibition game number one under Coach Nick Sirianni, the Eagles play caller?
Well, I will say Nick Sirianni learned a lot more under Frank Reich than he ever could learn under Mike McCoy when he was with the Chargers. So I'll go for that. But I think what we're going to see is, I think Sirianni is going to have a little bit of, I don't want to say a twist, because I think he's going to show some part of his offense. Like, I think he'll do an RPO or two, just kind of to have him run it in against another team in a live rep. It doesn't give anything away. I mean, because he pretty much said in the news conference it's going to be a big part of the offense. And maybe he'll use some of that 21 speed, just try to spice some things up a bit. But overall, I want to see how the tempo of the offense is. If they go no huddle a lot, if they do go in a huddle, how they move the chains. Are they going to be methodical? Are they going to, are they going to be like Doug and just kind of take their time? I don't think it's going to be like that at all. But I want to see like more of what Reich did, not last year with the Colts, Andrew Luck's year, his first year, because they were pretty up tempo and they were pretty quick. And I think he can do that with Jalen Hurts. I don't think it's going to be like the year they had Jacoby Brissett, where they kind of were just going with the flow at that point. It's like, okay, Jacoby could do this, but he can't do this, so we're not going to do it. But Andrew Luck's first year, 2018, that's the one I really look at, because they kind of were doing a lot of no huddle. They were taking shots downfield, which Jalen Hurts can do. I think they're going to do that a little bit. And I know I'm going a little forward into the regular season here, but overall, I think we'll see Jalen Hurts do a couple things like that in the preseason game.
Because that is the number one thing that Nick Sirianni will be judged on. That's just the way football fans are. I'd love to say Eagle fans, Philadelphia. No, this is across the board. Every single team, every single fan base, if your head coach is calling the plays, they're going to scrutinize you to the bitter end. And we'll see how it goes. Game number one for Nick Sirianni. We'll be watching, as will our next guest, ex-Eagle offensive lineman. You see him on the middle here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel and also on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Here's Big Barrett Brooks.
How you doing? How's it going today?
Good, Barrett. We're just talking about Nick Sirianni, the play caller, and I gave my opinion that the fans will either love him or hate him because of his play calling. Watching practice, talking to people at the NovaCare complex. What do you think we're going to see out of Nick Sirianni, the play caller, week one?
Well, he's had the full gamut of quarterbacks, during his career. He's had a guy that can run around and do everything. And I think he's going to make sure that, the offense is going to be well suited to whoever's going to be quarterback. If it's Jalen, he might have a couple of RPOs, where, run pass options. Flacco's in there. He's probably going to go deep a lot of the time or just run the offense, get it going. Those are things that you can do to help the quarterback, really get used to being out there when you call plays to the personnel packages you have out there. And I see Nick Sirianni doing that. Now, we can't really give an accurate analysis on what he's going to run, because right now they're just running plays to see what they can run and see if they can't run. And, sometimes it looks like the defense is a lot more ahead of the game, because, at the end of the day, it's easier for a defense to go out there and stop plays as opposed to 11 guys on the offensive side of the ball playing in concert and running a play. So, of course, the defense is going to look a lot better than the offense. But, as time goes on, that, great offensive line. And yes, I did say great offensive line. If all those guys are healthy, can really put you in a position you can call whatever you want to call, because those guys are a top 5 offensive line in the league. And I keep telling people that they're going to be what makes this team good. Not necessarily, what Jalen does or Flacco does, or Mullins does. It's more so what those guys up front do that will dictate how this season will go.
Barrett, God knows why I did this to myself over the weekend, but I was watching some of your old games with the 97 Eagles. And I don't know why I watched the first 3 games, because I have painful childhood memories of the Tom Hutton snap and whatever. But I remember the first game. Ty Detmer didn't play that well, and Rodney Peete came in against the Giants and just lit it up. Like, the Eagles wouldn't actually do that to Jalen Hurts at any point this year, would they?
Well, you know what? I mean, there's really no allegiance to who's going to be a quarterback. They've already defined that, it's an open quarterback position. Jalen's taken all the starter reps. Yes, he has. But, I don't think this organization wants to tie himself to anything until next year, really. And I assume that, they're going to give Jalen a lot more leash than they will give Joe as it pertains to that, But, I mean, you're right, man. Being in that game and understanding, what, Ty didn't play as well. Rodney came in. We rallied around Rodney, and Rodney played well, for a better part of that season because of it. A veteran guy, understood how to play. So, I mean, that was just a situation where he just took the reins and played well. But I was also, in a situation where it backfired on us also, where we had, a guy that came in against Cincinnati,
Bobby Hoying.
and we all know how that ended up. Bobby Hoying, he didn't light it up after that, because he basically wasn't the quarterback we thought we had when he played, with Gruden and his offense back then. It goes with Dana Bible the next year, and lo and behold, he wasn't as good as we thought. So, I've had both sides of that table that I've had to eat from. So, but I mean, at this point, with that offensive line, they can make anybody successful.
Barrett, you correctly, at least my opinion, gave the offensive line a ton of credit. I do think that will be the strength of the team this year, at least on the offensive side of the ball, what the O-line can accomplish. That being said, it came out, I think it was even before last week, the end of the previous week, when someone kind of spilled the beans that Nick Sirianni actually keeps track of practices and has a winner and a loser on the side of the ball each and every single practice. And the defense was dominating the offense on a day-in, day-out basis. Now, of course, Brandon Brooks isn't playing. He's day-to-day. He's been out week to week, but they're still calling him day-to-day. And Isaac Seumalo has been out of the lineup. So you're banking on putting those 2 guys back in, and it's going to be a bigger difference. But it has been dominating defense so far. If you're one of the guys who's actually in there playing, and the coach is keeping an eye and he's keeping score, and as a unit, you keep getting beat day in and day out, do you actually say anything to your teammates and go, hey, I know it's just practice, but we're losing. What the hell?
You know what?
The coach is holding this against us. Let's pick it up here, guys.
It's not necessarily that. This is the time of the year where you're getting evaluated. And all these guys should be playing to the, the highest point in their career, because it's a what have you done for me lately type of game, because, you do have a coaching staff that really doesn't have any allegiance or ties to older players or anything, because they're a new coaching staff. Everybody started out, not on the same plane, but, they had a fair opportunity in going out there and making a great first impression. So they have to go out there and play like there is no tomorrow, because a lot of these guys, there is no tomorrow. So when you ask guys like Hightower, who's not necessarily having a good camp, what's going on? I mean, we're losing right now. It's going to mean a lot different to him than it is going to be to a guy like, maybe a Greg Ward Jr. or JJ Otheka-Whiteside, when he's thinking of, all right, man, I got to ball out because they got all these young guys out there who've shown the ability to play. And here I am, one of the young guys, and I'm not, performing up to what I thought I was supposed to be performing up to, because I'm a second-round pick. All these things are going through these guys' minds. So they should be trying to play and compete at a higher level. They should be. You know what I'm saying? But at this point, the defense are light years ahead of them, simply because it's just the nature of how training camps go when it comes to offense and defense. It's harder to get 11 guys working in concert as opposed to, defense. You could kind of, highlight yourself just by beating the guy in front of you. On the offensive side of the ball, everybody has to work together in order for this thing to really work out. You can't have a guy freestyle on the defensive side of the ball and make a play, and it looks like, the defense is dominant. But you can't do that on the offensive side of the ball. So you have to be a little more disciplined on offense than necessarily on defense. So a lot of the time they look like they're highlighted simply because, they can, stick out a little more. You can play more like an individual as opposed on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Ray's first year, the 95 preseason, what did he say to you guys, like what he wanted to accomplish that first game? New head coach, all that. You're probably not running most of your offensive and defensive formations there. Like, what did he say to you guys?
Well, he was like, "Look, guys, I got to make sure that I picked the best team out there." And Ray didn't have any allegiance to anybody. He had allegiance to the guys he brought in, the Ricky Waters, the Fullers. Those guys had a little more leeway than a guy that trying to make the team. And, that's basically what he said. He said, hey, you got to go out there and play. He said it a little more animated than most. But, a guy like me, I was his first draft choice. He made sure that, hey, you're going to take all the reps. You're not getting off the field. I need you to be better before the team come, before we start these regular season games, because you are going to be vital for this team to be successful. You're going to be starting there, so I need you to have all the reps. So he made sure that I played every single rep in the preseason. Guys like Chris T. Jones, he was the same way. Bobby Taylor had to play every single rep because, we were guys that are going to the season and start early. So, we had to play at a high level because, Ray would get you out of there too. He was cutting guys left and right. He didn't care who you were or you could be a Pro Bowler. I mean, he cut Steve Wallace, a perennial Pro Bowler, one of the best tackles in the league. He cut him, because he didn't perform up to what he thought it was. So Ray made sure he cracked the whip a lot of the time.
Now, do you think Nick would do that though? Like, just not saying Nick has the final personnel decision, how he does, but say there's no like Steve Wallace type talent on the roster that has roster bubble. But overall, do you think he could cut a player of significance, like maybe a JJ Arcega-Whiteside or something like that?
Well, I think JJ has played, a lot higher than what people give him credit for. He's had a pretty good camp. He's played better than Hightower. So, if you look at him, he's doing a lot more than Hightower is right now. So I'd have to put him ahead of Hightower. But, you look at guys like Dillard. I mean, there's no way Dillard gets cut. But at this point, he is not playing up to the ability, or the capabilities they feel as though he should be playing at. So why do they keep him around? I mean, he could be a great trade bait type of guy at this point. So those, he's a guy in a position where, he hasn't done what he's supposed to do. He's not winning the position. Jordan Mailata is head and feet above, him as far as playing level, athleticism, dominance as a player. So, I mean, why keep him around? Well, because he's a first-round draft choice. He could possibly be a guy that they would trade. There are guys that, might get cut, even though they might be, draft picks that, you shouldn't. I mean, you have to perform right now, and that's exactly what, Nick Sirianni is preaching. You perform at a high level. You show me that you want to be here. You could be around. But if you don't, you think you're all that, you could also be out of here. So there's no allegiance right now to any older guys. There's no allegiance to guys that you feel as though should be making the team just because they've been around the organization for a lot longer than other guys.
Barrett, let me follow up on Dillard. You like the guys we have on, John McMullen, day in to day out, who gets a chance to see practice. John is still clinging to the fact that he kind of believed in Andre Dillard, and he's going to give him every last chance. He won't let that battle go. God bless John for his stick. But he's going to lose the same way Dillard's going to lose. Mailata's going to start game number 1. He's going to start on Thursday night. Can Nick Sirianni maybe get into Andre Dillard's head and say, listen, I'm starting Mailata. The job right now is Mailata. I know that Nick has gone to great lengths to not name anyone a starter just yet, but maybe it's time to flip the script and say, oh, my starter is Mailata game 1. I'm not naming him for game 1 of the regular season. I'm naming him for game 1 of the preseason here against Pittsburgh. Are you hearing me, Andre Dillard? I'm naming Jordan Mailata as the starter. In other words, you're not starting and you're not a lock to be on this football team. But I'm also leaving the door open for you. Walk through it, throw it open, go out there and pancake somebody tonight. Do you think Dillard is a guy who can be mentally motivated by the coach if he presses the right buttons?
I personally don't really think that Dillard has it in him. You know what I'm saying? I can't see it. And I don't know the kid. I haven't talked to the kid and really picked his brain. But just from what I see on the field, I just don't think that he has the heart and enthusiasm at this point to go out there and fight, man. You have to fight every single play. Last week, week before last, I saw him tap out of a play just because he hurt his hand. Come on now. You got beat, you got put on your butt, then you get up, you take yourself out the game. If I get put on my ass, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna fight. I want to try to, make sure that, hey, you're not gonna do that to me again. I don't see that in him. If I get beat on one-on-ones, I'm like, hey, coach, no, let me run this over. Let's run this over. Let's run this back. You know what I'm saying? Let's go again. I don't see that in him. And it's a shame because he's a technique wizard. He has great technique. But, technique only gets you so far. Technique will get you where you're supposed to be at that point. But then it just, it's got to be an inner self to saying, hey, I got to go out and whip this guy in front of me. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, he's gonna take food off my plate. That's what he lacks at this point, from what I see. You know what I'm saying? And that's what that's the only evaluation I can give from what I see. I don't know what others are saying, but I see him out there every once in a while. He'll go out there, have a good play, and he'll stretch around like he's a rooster. You got to do that consistently, and I don't see that consistency in him.
Barrett, when I named the Eagles offensive line, I was on Mike Gill yesterday. And I totally forgot about Nate Herbig because they're that deep. And I mentioned like 11, 12 guys before I got to a guy who's going to make the team. So who ultimately is not going to make this roster on this offensive line?
Wow, that's tough, man. That's really, really tough, man. Because, when I look at it, they do have some doubt, like right now, the guys that are starting, Opeda, all those guys, because of, the starters are out. I don't know if they make the team. And when I look at the roster, I look at what they're trying to do with the Eagles, the offensive line. He has Coach Stalin has a lot of guys that performed pretty well for him last year. And they had some quality reps last year. And some guys have taken it and run with it. A guy that I thought he was going to be cut last year really was what's his name? Oh my goodness. What was his name? Oh my goodness. Matt Pryor. Yeah. Now Matt Pryor played horrible last year. But I see a definite difference on how he's approaching the game now. He's looking more consistent. He looked like he's battling now. Herbig, they got him as center. He's playing well. He's playing, and he came in slim, ready to rock and roll. But then they have these young guys, that came in this year. What is his name? Coyote, kid from Buffalo. He's shown me something, man. He showed me he can play. He's out there throwing guys around and playing at a high level. So where does he fit in anywhere? If he plays in the preseason, great. They're not going to be able to hide him on the practice squad because he's playing at a level right now that I think he deserves a shot at really making an open day roster. So,
is there a chance, Barrett, along those lines, sorry to interrupt, that they basically redshirt Landon Dickerson? If he seems physically ready to play, I'm sure you'd at least like to get him out there so you can get a look at him. We know he factors in to the future of this team, and we were told that he should be back at some point during the year. But if they have this good offensive depth and they don't want to expose it to waivers, is there a chance that Landon Dickerson could sit this entire year and basically redshirt?
I don't know if he sits the entire year, but I think he goes into the season on a PUP list. Just from watching him in college, man, he brings a lot to the table, man. He's a force. He brings a lot to the table. And I was looking at him at first as a luxury pick, you have depth at the offensive line. But once I really broke down the tape and remember the plays that I saw him play up front and close, I'm like, yeah, this kid's going to play. He's going to play early too. So, he's going to put the heat not just on, the guys that are backups, but he's going to put the heat on a couple starters also. So at this point, I see him as a guy that he's not going to make it through the year and not be on the team. I mean, he's going to be, on the not opening day roster, but he's going to be on the roster before it's all over with as a backup on game day. I see that with him.
Everything I'm reading, everything I'm hearing, everything I'm told, the Eagles have pretty much crushed it with their first 4 picks of this draft. Like, Dickerson's a beast. We know that. Zach McPherson has been great. Milton Williams has been all over the place. And Devonta Smith. Like, could this be like a franchise-altering draft for, dare we say it, Howie Roseman?
Well, it's going to have to be. He was on the hot seat a little bit, but I think he went through. I mean, Milton, he's shown quickness, explosiveness off the ball. McPherson looks like he's an NFL corner. He has the body, but he also has the instincts. He's playing well out there, man. He's showing that he belongs, out there on the field, not just as a backup, but, he's going to compete. He's going to compete, on the outside. So, how we may have done a lot better than what we thought, at least what I thought. I'll put it with me, at least better than I thought. Like I said, I thought, Dickerson was a luxury pick. I really did. But he's shown now that, from what I've seen on film in college, that he needs to be there, and that was a good pick. They went out and got Nelson, so it kind of, takes that luxury pick away because they knew they were going to go out and get a veteran out there on the corner. So, that's why they picked in the, 4th round as opposed to being in the 2nd round at the corner position.
Here's one of the things that I don't know the answer to. I'm getting excited to look forward to see how actually it plays itself out. I think the Eagles are going to have a good pass rushing team this year. I know with their former defensive coordinator, he believed we're going to get there with 4, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to play everyone else back. Got to be able to cover. He just was not a blitzing guy. I think that the new defensive coordinator wants to hide things, wants to give you different looks, wants to be able to deceive you, which means they could bring some extra guys in blitzes. And when you do that, it gives all those defensive ends basically one-on-one battles because somebody's got to jump out and somebody's got to pick up the blitzer. They got some talent at the defensive end now. Josh Sweat has been, according to all accounts, maybe the best defensive player in camp this year. Derek Barnett has tried to match him and has been hanging with him. We know what Brandon Graham is. Kerrigan is a pass rusher. That's what he does, and he brings some veteran leadership. And Cox has been moved outside. Not Cox, the draft pick, the first-round draft pick, their third-round draft pick this year. Williams. They moved him outside. They almost have a too big a roster of defensive ends, Barrett. How do you think the coach incorporates all these guys into that defensive line rotation?
Well, they've shown it. They ran a lot of bear front this year. Bear front is when you cover up the guard, both guards, and the center on the offensive line. So now you have essentially 5 defensive linemen, and you're asking the offensive line to block all 5 guys. You never know. And what Kerrigan brings to the table, and also Avery, Jannard Avery, they bring to the table is a defensive end / linebacker type. So now they can cover a tight end or maybe a running back, and break off when they're blitzing. That's a luxury they didn't have in the past, but they can do that. And with this bear front, it's basically to stop the run, but you can blitz off that front because now you don't know what side they're going to blitz from, what side they're going to come from, because it evens up everything. Once the center and both guards are tackled, that number count becomes kind of wishy-washy as an offensive lineman because now it evens up your front. So who do you block now? Where's the blitz going to be coming from? Which way do you slide the offensive line to? Who's going to pick up the hot guy? It all gets, lost in the wash when you have that type of bare front, man. So they've shown that a lot, which allows you to be very fluent in calling plays on the defensive side of the ball because you can't guess. You can guess wrong a lot of the time when you have fronts like that. So they're taking advantage of all the guys they have when you have 5 defensive linemen on the field at one time. And I think that's one of the better things you can do because you have the autonomy of having a Kerrigan and a Jannard Avery who can play linebacker and rush the passer as a defensive end.
I came out with my 3 bold predictions for the Eagles this year for CBSSports.com, and my number one was, and I actually think he can get it, Devonta Smith's going to get 1,000 yards receiving this year. The extra game definitely helped. But what is going to separate him from Jamar Chase, who I think is going to be an absolute stud in this league, and Jalen Waddle?
Well, his ability to run routes, his route running is elite. And the biggest thing he brings to the table, he can catch. He catches consistently. We haven't had a guy like that in a long time who when you throw the ball to him, they're going to catch it. Alshon was that guy. He keeps the chain moving. Well, I think Smith is going to be the same way. He can keep the chains moving. You might not have the huge, big plays, and he'll have a couple, but he's going to be a guy that you can go to on crucial situations when you have to run a slant and you have to get the ball to the guy to get the first down. He'll be the guy that I think Hurts going to look for. We had we had so much inconsistency. I equate him like an Irvin Pryor type of player. Irvin would just get the chains moving. Irvin would catch the tough catch. Irvin would make sure that he got to the sticks, caught the ball to keep the offense on the field. I think that's Devontae's place on this team as a number one, and I think that he's going to fulfill that. He will have a lot of, yardage simply because the volume of catches he's going to have because he's going to catch consistently.
Barrett, last one for me, and I'm taking you back into your playing days. We love the Barrett stories. What was the toughest game for you to ever get through? Because I checked the weather before we came on. It's going to be about 91 degrees at kickoff on Thursday night. We got a heat wave coming in, and it's still going to be there on Thursday night. So out there, first practice, fully padded, first exhibition game, and it's going to be hot. What was the toughest game you ever played physically that you had to get through? That at some point you said to yourself, wait, how much time is left on the clock? I'm not going to make this. This is not happening. I'm going down here, and I'm going down hard. Did you ever have a game like that during your career?
Yes. And it was my rookie year, and it was in the preseason. And this is really where I thought, man, am I going to make it in the NFL? I'm not going to be able to play. But we played, listen to this, in Mississippi. We played a game in Mississippi, a preseason game in Mississippi. In the summertime, it was preseason. It was so hot out there, man. I call it Africa hot. That's how hot it was, bro. It was like we were sitting right there on the equator, man. It was so hot. We were closest to the sun, man. And we played a game against the New York Jets there. And I can remember being in that game and halfway through the second quarter, I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I'm about to fall out. I had to go in and get an IV at halftime, man. That's how hot it was, man. It was hot. It was the hottest I've ever been in my life. In fact, I can remember flying back on the plane, and you would just hear guys as they're flying back, and you see the training staff run back there, and they be putting an IV in guys because their body were locking up. There was no less than 15 guys who had IVs running at a time on our flight back from Mississippi. I don't know why we played a game in Mississippi. If you look it up, we played a game in Mississippi against the New York Jets. It was crazy, man.
Barrett, I actually saw something on one of the highlight reels. You remember the game where Ty Detmer and Ricky Wars were basically flipping out over Ricky War? I guess the alligator armed another catch or something like that.
Yes.
He has a 30-yard run late in that game. And I see your face and you're like, wait, is that Barrett Brooks doing that? And then I turned around, I froze the thing and it was. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, I see Ricky.
It was crazy, man. Because playing with Ricky, man, was, it was definitely it was cool, man, because Ricky would give you everything, man. He'd be cussing us out because we'd block, we give him, he'd back 9 yards, he'll run 9 yards, he'll run 6 yards, he'll run 4 yards, he'll run 6 yards, then he'll break one for 10 yards. But then Charlie Garner would come in the game. And then he'd break one for 30 or 60, and he'd be yelling, oh, you guys aren't blocking for me like you're blocking for Charlie. No, Charlie just needs this much room. He doesn't need that much room, So it got to a point where, Guy McIntyre was like, look, man, you say one more thing about us blocking, man, and it's going to be a problem. So, it was kind of crazy, that you say that, because Ricky always thought we were blocking harder for him. But in all actuality, Charlie didn't need much to break it loose. You know what I'm saying? Plus that breakaway speed that he had. But, I mean, come on, man. You got 9 yards here, 8 yards there. You know what I mean? He was, he would have 135 yards, but it'd be on 25 carries, and Charlie would have 120 yards on 3 carries. You know what I mean?
John Gruden loved him some Charlie Gardner.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did, man. Yes, he did. So, but it was great, man.
Barrett, now all you have to do is put up with Harry and Eitan. So It might not be 110 degrees in Mississippi, but we know that's heavy lifting, and you have to sweat it every day with those two knuckleheads too.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you coming out with us today. We're going to have you on plenty during the season, buddy. Enjoy the game on Thursday.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Barrett Brooks from the middle here on with us on